Dr. Husnul Amin from International Islamic University, Islamabad. Dr. Amin is Associate Professor of Politics and Executive Director, Iqbal International Institute for Research and Dialogue, Islamabad. He obtained his PhD in Development Studies, specialized in Political Sociology from the International Institute of Social Studies, The Hague, The Hague. Currently, he is an associate professor at the Department of Politics and International Relations at the International Islamic University, Islamabad. Mr. Dr. Husnul Amin, the screen is yours. And also you have 7 to 10 minutes to deliver your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone there, including the organizers of the conference and my very dear friend and brother, Shafiq Hashim. So we were there together in Germany and in the same institute. I was doing my postdoc and he was there for PhD. Thank you so much. Could you run the slides as well? I shared, or should I share from here?
Of course, the committee will provide the presentation.
Okay.
Please, Okay.
Okay. So that I can see it, because I can't see my own slides. So let me see. Okay. So I will discuss. Pakistan is having a very peculiar geography as well as very peculiar history, where Islam in very multifarious ways, intervenes, starting from the creation of this country, which was there rooted in the partition movement, and then in the constitution making process, and then proximity with the Iranian revolution, and then Afghan jihad, and this whole hosting that process, the presence of a huge, significant number of religious madaris, and of course there are thousands of graduates in the East Asian region as well who graduated from here. So it's a very peculiar history of this country, and it created peculiar problems as well, including the ideas of caliphate, and then abhorring the ideas modern citizenship, modern nation state, and then the ideas of jihad and violence, specifically a very problematic approach towards women and her freedoms, also the minorities, the non-Muslim minorities. So there are peculiar issues with that. So my focus is on some of the new male interpreters of a very tolerant and human-friendly Islam. And I will just introduce these scholars, writers, and who come mainly from political Islam, but also from other Deobandi variants and the Ahl Hadith, and also from other, and just quickly introduce their main concepts. So I will not take more than 10 minutes. So these new interpreters are, not necessarily graduates of the traditional religious schools, but they also graduated from modern universities. And I remember one Indonesian scholar in our madrasa conference, and he said, the reformist Islam, the job or the task of the reformist Islam cannot be left just to the ulema, because there could be other scholars from the modern institutions as well. So these new interpreters are graduates of universities. Also some studied in madrasas, but they are not mainly from the madrasa tradition. So they have a new hermeneutics, new art of interpretation, and that hermeneutics, ta'bir, the usul of ta'bir, they actually gave them new space to imagine, to reimagine actually the Islam's relationship with modernity, with the state, with the citizenship, with democracy, with gender justice, and these issues. And so this is actually different from Islamic modernism, which was, initiated here in the subcontinent region by Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. And one very famous scholar who is very famous in Indonesia is Dr. Fazlur Rahman. So this entire intellectual movement is very different from them as well in terms of its hermeneutics and rules of interpretation. Because you will see they engage on one side ulama and Islamists, and the other side they will keep engaging the modernists as well, the liberal interpreters as well. So they think that there is enough capacity and accommodation within the text, because normally the textualists are considered as reductionists and essentialists, but they think that no, the text, if we could introduce these new hermeneutics of reading Quran and the Seerah of the Prophet, then we will be able to create new space for thinking, reimagining these very complex relationships. So we don't need to necessarily bring these from outside the text. The text itself creates this space for this. These new interpreters have penetrated among the youth and the new middle classes, specifically women, Pakistani diaspora and diasporic community. So let me just quickly have a round of some of those faces. You will see this engineer, Muhammad Ali Mirza. So he is by profession an engineer, but he also studied religious text, and he is from an Ahl Hadith, Salafi background, but he is having millions of followers on the YouTube, in his YouTube channel. And you will see he is abhorring violence, extremism. He is very much rooted in tradition, but also engaging the religious scholars, also criticizing the traditional ulama for being so strict, for the strict adherence to several issues which are very problematic. Here is another face. I would rather call him the face of the official Islam in Pakistan. His name is Professor Qibla Ayaz. He is also known in Indonesia to some of you. And he is the chairman of the ideology of Islamic Ideology Council, which is actually a constitutional body. And to revisit any laws, legislations which are made, and just to revisit and whether these are compatible with Islamic Sharia or not. So he is a moderate scholar. He speaks on these issues, and he is a new interpreter as well, specifically in gender accommodation, the women accommodation in social life, public spaces, democracy, and these issues. The main person which I would like to discuss, because the later other scholars are his students. He is Ghamidi, Javed Ahmad Ghamidi. He is in exile these days, actually in self-enforced exile, because he was threatened by the militants, attacked as well. And he is an ex-Islamist. I call him post-Islamist, but he is in the US now, and he lived in Malaysia in exile for several years. So he penetrated among the middle classes and among the new middle classes in Pakistan. He came up with these new ideas that, for example, jihad. So the jihad of that kind, which was fought by the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, that doesn't actually can be extended into this era. So that has become a historical category, because that was for the Rasul, for the messenger, and it is having its own rules and regulations, and that cannot be. The only type of jihad which we can have is against jabr, persecution, and that is fitna. So if a state wants to do jihad, that would be against actually religious persecution. If you are not allowed to practice your beliefs and to have religious worshipings. So even it can be actually fought against some Muslim states who are not allowing different religious groups to practice their beliefs and worship. So he is the main grand intellectual religious scholar who is based these days here in the Texas, Dallas, and he's having his center there. He created a lot of influence as well as critical mass, inspired public policy, as well as the state officials in the military elite, as well as in the academia. And he is around 70 years old, and he created a lot of space to rethink. So this is Dr. Ammar Khan Nasir. He is coming from Deoband, a very religious, traditional religious family. His father and grandfather both were very prominent scholars of Deoband. But he, graduated there from his own madrasa, but he was inspired by Ghamidhi's new hermeneutics and rules of interpretation, and he is now, a modern scholar. Dr. Farooq.
Pardon me, Dr. Husnul, you only have 2 minutes left. Thank you.
Dr. Farooq Khan was also a scholar. He was killed by the militants, and he created a lot of reformist ideas and reformist influence in the Northwest Pakistan. And he introduced this idea of the human-friendly Islam, that Islam which is friendly to non-Muslims, to minorities, to women. Another phase, he visited sometime in Indonesia, and I think he was hosted by Shafiq Hashim, and in the 90s, I think, late 90s or some early 2000s, sometime like that. And he's a very famous name in the media, and another phase is based in the US. So my point was that these new ideas, they come from within the text. They are not textualists, they are textual contextualists, I must say. So these come up with these inclusive, tolerant, moderate, gender-sensitive, human-friendly Islam, and they come from within the Quran and from within the Sunnah and the prophetic tradition. So they do not call themselves Islamists or modernists. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Dr. Husnul Amin, for your interesting and enlightened presentation on current situation in Pakistan, and also lesson learned that we can study from your presentation. Because of the limited time, we only have 20 minutes for the question and answer. First question is from Mr. Abdul Wahid. His question is, my name is from Mr. Naziful Haq. His question is, my name is Nazif. I'm from PMII Sleman. It's a youth student organization from Nahdlatul Ulama. I will ask to Dr. Husnul Amin. His question is, in Southeast Asia, in South Asian countries which have intense penetration of capitalism and modern development agenda, such as Indonesia and Philippines, for example, youth generation are susceptible for transitional Islam ideas and right-wing Islamic populism as a response against Western and liberal ideas. I wonder, by the peculiar condition of Pakistan politics, Islam and modernism, how is the condition of young Pakistan Muslim there? Are they also prone to a certain kind of threat as well as happen in Southeast Asian countries? Or you have different perspective? And also a question from Mr. Abdul Wahid. I would like to get more information about democracy development in Tunisia and Pakistan. We know there is sustained conflict in politics in the both countries in the name of religion. So Indonesia also has problem during presidential election in 2014, and there is politicking Islam religion. Please make confirmation about this happening. Mr. Shafiq and Mr. Zuhayatin. I would like to invite Dr. Husnul Amin to start the question and answer. The time is yours.
Thank you so much for the questions, Mr. Nazif Fulhaq. So, yes, Pakistani youth is equally susceptible, vulnerable, prone to the same kind of, transnational Islamist ideas like caliphate and other ideas. But one thing here is that in Pakistan, we have a procedural democracy at least, because elections are taking place and we have political parties, and the Islamist forces do not actually win popular support in the elections. So whenever there are elections, unless there is a coalition made by the military, they cannot win popular support. So that's, I think, one reason that the youth, which are very much susceptible to violence, they remain in the fringes, and sometimes they create some networks and some, do some violence as well in isolated like pockets here and there in urban spaces. But due to the presence of, political parties, at least a procedural democracy which is controlled and hybrid and surveilled by the military establishment, but still these all processes discourage the ability of the youth to come out for large scale popular kind of violence in the urban spaces specifically. Also, the democracy condition of democracy question in Tunisia and Pakistan, that's also somehow related to this. So I would like to reflect on this, on both questions in the same answer. Pakistan is having a procedural democracy, no doubt, but it's an illiberal democracy. Illiberal democracy because, as Professor Ahmed Galul, he was reflecting on, democracy is not just elections, it's more than that. So it's like freedoms in the media, academic freedoms, freedom of expression, legislation, and different, and then access to basic services and social services. All this whole governance model actually makes up a very good democracy. But procedural democracy is here. Without these liberties, it makes it more vulnerable and susceptible to such adventures in Pakistani politics as well. One last thing I will just reflect in 1 minute. That is the poverty of ulema and the scholars. They don't have new ideas. They do not research. They do not do ijtihad. They are not open to new ideas. And that's one reason that the new youth is coming up with new questions, challenging these ideas of caliphate and citizenship and these violence, jihad, and these. But the scholarship, both academic and social and public intellectuals, they are not rich in new ideas which can respond amicably to the youth. I think, I must appreciate, when I was in Tunisia, I did that as well there, that this Muslim Democrats, the idea of this Muslim democracy, it is a way out. We should capitalize on this. We should build on this, that there is a middle ground between these ideas of secularism, which are not working as well in Muslim societies, and ideas of caliphate, ideal Islamic State, and Islamism. These are also the other extremes. I think the middle ground is what actually Nahda in Tunisia, and some groups here in Indonesia, and some groups, Hizb al-Wasat in Egypt, for example, they have come up with new ideas of like this Islam without fear, and these democratic Islam and Muslim Democrats. I think these are workable ideas, but we need to do more on further development of these ideas. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Dr. Husnul Amin, for your comprehensive response to the two questions raised by the participant. To give his response and also closing remarks to Dr. Husnul Amin from International Islamic University, Islamabad. The screen is yours.
Thank you. In my humble understanding, the categorizations you have made in the concept paper of this conference are amazing. These are beautiful. We all have these three levels, and we should actually educate our society or our youth through, the religious medium, to universities, through the public policy, at what actually these three concepts mean. So the very first identity we all have is the Muslimness. So the Muslim should be like Ohuwa, like they are brothers and sisters with each other. It's not more in the political sense, but more in the social sense, that all Muslims living across the world, because the concept of Tawheed and the concept of a belief, certain beliefs, they actually bring them together. But that is not the only identity they have. They have another identity, which is a citizenship in a modern nation state. Indonesia, Tunisia, Pakistan, all these are actually modern nation state and which are not contrary to Islam. So, these ideas of global caliphate, and these should be properly handled and dismantled, because these are just Arabic vocabularies. And you can call a hukum, you can call a leader of a government a Khalifa or an Amir al-Mumineen or a prime minister. This is just the terms, the concepts used for these. So I think that is the second thing, because when I live in the US or in the EU region, I sign an agreement, a contract, that I will live and I will rule, I will be abiding the rules and the laws here as minority there. But they don't discriminate on this, like the minority majority. That is, they have citizenship. So citizenship, as Shafiq Hashim was saying, it actually cancels out these other kind of categorizations. There is no majority and minority. They all are citizens. So when they have citizens, they have rights and responsibilities. And the third thing is this, the Bashariya, the identity that we all are human beings, and our relationship with Christians, Hindus, Chinese, non-Muslims, Muslims, everyone should be on the basis of that. We all are creatures, sons and daughters of Adam and Eve, and we are created by one God. And there is a common link between us, among us, and that is the Bashari. And on the basis of that, we owe certain rights and responsibilities to them as well. So I think if we could proper educate our new generations, both in schools and madrasas and colleges and universities, and as well as society at large, we would be in a very much more better condition, as well as we will actually enjoy the peace and tolerance of our society. So that's all from my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Yeah, Mas Wahid. Okay, please give your best style and smile. Okay, I will guide you. One. Oh, it's already taken. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Smile. Okay, thank you so much, speakers. We learned a lot from all of you. Hope that you will we will meet again in another occasion. Thank you so much again for the knowledge and all lesson learned. Therefore, on behalf of the Joint Committee in FIT, Nahdlatul Ulama, and Muhammadiyah, we really appreciate the presence and participation of all of you. We thank all of the speakers for their presentation and fruitful enlightenment. We apologize for the things that are not pleasing. Don't forget to join the next session of the seminar on January 26 and 27, 2022, starting at 3:30 p.m. Indonesian time. You can visit INVIT social media account to get more information about the schedule and also the speakers and the session. You can go and visit their Instagram, Facebook, and also Twitter. Once again, we hope you will join us tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, because we still have 4 sessions as part of these 3 days international seminars. I'm Titi Anggraini. I'm from Muhammadiyah Indonesia. I would like to thank you all. And wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy. Thank you to all the speakers and participants.
Thank you.